I'm sorry to interrupt. Do
Oh,
people
no,
drink
no,
all
no.
day? Do they just start it in the morning and start drinking it and end end the night with it? Like, how do they do it?
Well, it depends, right? Because it's used all through the South Pacific. So it's used in Vanuatu and in Fiji and in Tonga and in Papua New Guinea and in Hawaii some. So they have different practices, different places. Like, Fiji, they like to drink all day, basically. So they drink smaller amounts throughout the day. And they use certain parts of the plant that are a little bit more daytime, a little bit more of that sort of uplift focus and less of the relaxing piece. And, our strains, we've kind of got it in the middle to where it kind of gives you a little bit of everything to start with. But anyways, but in Vanuatu, they drink theirs like, 3 o'clock and on, like the end of the day, and they drink heavy. They drink a lot, at one time. And it's sort of just like how they connect, how they come together, and how they do, most of what we associate with after work type of, connecting and everything. So it's and then so there's different practices everywhere, kind of for different purposes. But it's one of those things that, so the reason, kind of back to the reasons like why we're focusing so much time on this project is because it's very rare that you come across something that has as much broad spectrum versatility that's completely untapped and not integrated into culture already, right? So imagine whenever coffee was first integrated into Western culture, how it helped to transform the collective mind of how we even function, for better or for worse. Probably some for better, for worse, but it definitely helped to fuel this whole productivity minded type of thing when everybody is on caffeine. If you study cultures anthropologically, this is really interesting. This kind of comes back to the why and of, why this is important. A lot of, many cultures' highest like values and aspirations are a direct reflection of the altered states that they choose to value and uphold. Because every culture really in history values some form of altered states, whether they're drug-induced, alcohol-induced, whether they're practice-induced, meditation-induced. We value altered states to kind of create a pattern interrupt, to allow us to reflect, allow us to think, allow us to connect, all those things, to get out of our daily grind to some degree. And so the quality of those states a lot plays big into the development of our values and the way that we connect with one another, right? So, in cultures where we uphold alcohol and nicotine as the top, reflects a lot in mental illness and problems, right? And in cultures where, say, like in the Amazon, where they value these deep medicines like ayahuasca and some other ones, they tend to have a much deeper connection to the natural ecology. They have a deeper connection to one another. They have an understanding of the human emotional framework. There's things that are void, mental health wise, in some of these cultures that do this that are present here. So, the idea is trying to integrate this medicine that really is out of because I've worked with most of the psychoactive and non-psychoactive plant medicines available. The adaptogenic herbs, obviously everything out of Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, all these things have their place, all the way to the really heavy psychoactive psychedelics like 5-MeO DMT that literally will, it's a whole nother thing. And Kava kind of has this perfect, amazing balance. This is probably the greatest like therapeutic effect to drawback ratio that I've come across, meaning that it does so much for the mind and for the body, but while having very little to no side effects, right? So like it has these effects on the mind and on optimizing the mind, but it doesn't take you out of your mind, It increases functionality, right? And it's so tolerable. It's so therapeutic. So it's such a go-to for people experiencing pain and inflammation and anxiety and all these things. At least not as a one-stop shop. Ultimately people getting well is always a multi-therapeutic approach, but it's a great leverage tool to kind of get things started. So it has all of those effects, but without being addictive, without being toxic, if you get the right parts of the plant, the right, forms and everything. So it's, so it just has huge therapeutic effect, and its ability to have, we believe, a really, really positive net impact culturally if it's integrated properly. So kind of our mission is just like, you've got organizations like MAPS, people that we know that are advocating big time for the clinical integration of psychedelic medicines and trying to build a framework for them. psilocybin, LSD, DMT, ayahuasca, and we need frameworks for those. But that's going to take some time to really get solid, really effective frameworks, because trying to understand the medicine and integrate it clinically and safely to where you're solving more problems than you're creating. And we're going to get there. But Kava is this whole other thing that when I stepped into it, nobody was doing this, right? Like, it's basically just with this sort of this untapped, people in the South Pacific knew about it, been trying to tell people about it, forever, but it just had never escaped for a lot of reasons, really. So that's basically what we are, is we're trying to integrate it culturally and trying to build out all these layers for it, because it feeds into a lot of other discussions about, mental health and things, but it's a worthy project. For us, it's very fascinating for, anybody, any, clinician, any physician, any average person who knows someone who's dealing with addiction or, neurological issues of any kind. It's just one of many tools, but it's a very powerful tool.